Chapter 881, Resigning from the Clan. The Zhao Feng from the past is gone. In my name, I am Zhao Feng, the left-eyed heavenly emperor of the Kang Ocean. The voice resounded across heaven and earth and through the soul dimension. All the intelligent beings, including those that weren't human, within several thousand miles could understand what this meant. Hearing this voice, the experts present like Emperor Lingchong, King Lu Yuan, Duke Ninfeng, and Tai Lishan shook. Zhao Feng's voice was an announcement to declare the true him. The original Zhao Feng was gone, and although Zhao Feng had inherited his body, they were two different people. Zhao Feng didn't want to live under someone else's identity. Besides, his true identity was close to being exposed anyway, so he wouldn't be able to hide it much longer even if he wanted to. So that's how it is. The elders and disciples familiar with Zhao Feng all understood and sighed in their hearts as complex expressions appeared on their faces. Thinking about it, it was obviously true. How could there be such a prodigy in the world that he was able to break through from the true spirit realm and become a king that could slay emperors within a year? This resolves a lot of suspicions. Duke Ninfeng understood. In the world of cultivation, it wasn't very rare or weird for those that had reached the void god realm to steal a body and recultivate. Before, when Zhao Feng was getting close with Princess Yuqing and healing the cloud silk saint butterfly, Duke Ninfeng had sent people to find about his past, and the result showed that Zhao Feng's past was full of suspicious points. Now that Zhao Feng's true identity came to light, everything made sense. What's going on? Tai Lishan's expression changed. He was caught off guard by this sudden turn. Shoo! Tai Lishan waved his hand, and an old figure appeared from his little world. It was Grandfather Zhao. That is indeed the case. Grandfather Zhao smiled bitterly with a complex expression. Fenger was killed by the Yin family, and an expert took over his body. Then the Blood Devil Sun bloodline? A light flashed through Tai Lishan's eyes. What he worried about most was the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline. He didn't really care about the original Zhao Feng's life or death. The Blood Devil Sun bloodline appeared only after that expert took over, Grandfather Zhao replied honestly. Although the original Zhao Feng was somewhat talented, he didn't have such a powerful bloodline until Zhao Feng took over the body. Hearing that, Tai Lishan couldn't help but start to think. He was suspicious that something happened after Zhao Feng took over that made the hidden bloodline awaken. There could even be the possibility that Zhao Feng himself had some sort of secret technique that could awaken and evolve bloodlines. In reality, most of the beings in the world had bloodlines, but some may be extremely faint or hidden. It was very likely that they wouldn't awaken. This Zhao Feng was definitely an expert before. He was at least a peak emperor or even a mystic light realm sacred lord before. Tai Lishan took in a deep breath. The situation had now become complex. Since the original Zhao Feng's body was taken over by someone else, then he obviously didn't have any true feelings toward the Yunling Zhao family or the Tai family. This meant that getting him to return to the Tai family would be extremely difficult. Senior Marshal Brother Guang Yan. Zhao Feng stood proudly in the air as he locked onto a cowering figure in the crowd below. Arg! Senior Marshal Brother Guang Tian's soul almost flew away in fear, and he knelt down on the ground. Zhao Feng snickered coldly as magnificent power covered the figure below. My lord, spare me. Emperor Zhao, please. Senior Marshal Brother Guang Tian didn't even fight back, he simply allowed the power to take him into the air. No one from the 10,000 sacred clan dared to stop him, including Guang Tian's master, King Lucheng. The latter's expression changed, but he didn't dare to do anything. The original Zhao Feng died because of you and the Yin family. As the new owner of this body, I definitely won't let you off. Zhao Feng gave a faint smile. Since the truth had already unfolded, the time was ripe. Zhao Feng didn't mind solving everything at once. Senior Marshal Brother Guang Tian's face went pale white, and he didn't even have the ability to lie or argue under Zhao Feng's intent. Die. With a thought, Zhao Feng crushed Senior Marshal Brother Guang Tian into pieces with the power of heaven and earth. Magnificent power was formed from the power of heaven and earth. Upon reaching the emperor level, the soul would evolve, and one would be able to summon more magnificent power. As for those at the mystic light realm, they had reached an incredible level. Apparently, even their true yuan could be formed from the power of heaven and earth. At that level, any thought or action from them could suppress mortals, and it was almost in the domain of gods. Of course, Zhao Feng only knew a little bit about such a thing. Although he had met the Sacred Lord Level B Empress in Xieyang Palace, its entire aim in life was to breed, so it didn't have very strong battle power. It had the raw power, but it didn't really know how to use it. Boom. Under the shaky magnificent power, Senior Marshal Brother Guangtian was killed. All those below kings were ants. Even in the massive continent zone, Void God Realm kings were unreachable existences for billions and billions of cultivators. In normal places, there weren't many kings, but as Zhao Feng became stronger, the people he would meet would also be stronger. Plop. Plop. Some of the disciples such as Huang Yunyu, Wang Yuan, and company from the 10,000 sacred clan suddenly knelt down. Lord Zhao, please forgive us. These people had enmities with Zhao Feng in the past and were now begging for forgiveness. No one from the 10,000 sacred clan was able to stop Zhao Feng. Putting aside the normal disciples, Zhao Feng could even kill kings if he wanted to. When Zhao Feng killed Senior Marshal Brother Guang just now, the latter's own master King Lu Chang didn't even dare to say anything or stop him. Although Senior Marshal Brother Guang was just an unnamed disciple to him, that was still enough to see how strong Zhao Feng was. Since the original Zhao Feng has passed away, I will now resign from the 10,000 sacred clan. An emotionless voice resounded across the 10,000 sacred clan. Zhao Feng didn't bother about Huang Yunyu and company. The enmity from before was just a small fight between disciples, so he didn't take it to heart. Resigning from the 10,000 sacred clan? The hearts of the disciples, kings, and emperors all shook. One had to say that it would be a big blow to the 10,000 sacred clan if such an expert left the 10,000 sacred clan. However, only a small number of people were able to guess what Zhao Feng was trying to do. The purple-haired demonic duo had offended too many forces in the divine illusion dimension, and the small 10,000 sacred clan wouldn't be able to handle the heat. Although it seemed like Zhao Feng was acting emotionlessly, he was actually cutting ties with the 10,000 sacred clan in the hopes that no one would come after them. This Zhao Feng certainly has his principles. But that title of left-eyed heavenly emperor is slightly familiar. Duke Ninfeng had a praising expression as he started to think. The Kang Ocean was pretty far away from the continent zone, and there was also the Nanlan Sea between the two. The fame of the left-eyed heavenly emperor had only appeared in the Kang Ocean for a couple years, so only a small portion of people in the Nanlan Sea knew the title. Not many around the Tianfeng Great Island Zone knew about it, other than some information agencies. Zhao Feng, the 10,000 sacred clan won't force you to stay, but no matter what you accomplish in the future, you were once a member here. The Emperor projection of Old Monster Shu sighed in the air. Old Monster Shu was once a peak emperor of the 10,000 sacred clan, but he failed to break through to the mystic light realm and was reaching the end of his lifespan. What he was trying to convey was that he hoped Zhao Feng would owe them a favor. With Zhao Feng's potential, his future was immeasurable. If Zhao Feng was able to reach even higher levels in the future, Old Monster Shu hoped that Zhao Feng would take care of the 10,000 sacred clan. Spatial movement. Zhao Feng's left eye suddenly glittered with a ripple of water as it locked onto a certain forbidden place in the 10,000 sacred clan. In the forbidden place sat an elder, who suddenly saw a little jade bottle in front of him. This old figure was Old Monster Shu of the 10,000 sacred clan. He instinctively grabbed the little jade bottle and saw a half-frozen, multicolored honey within it. You'll reach the end of your lifespan unless you manage to break through to the mystic light realm. I'm giving this 100 origin sacred honey to you because I was once a member of this clan, a faint voice sounded next to Old Monster Shu's ears. 100 origin sacred honey. Old Monster Shu's body suddenly shook as he was filled with joy. Of course, this isn't just because I was once a member of the clan. When you break through, you will allow me to give you 3 tasks in the future, Zhao Feng's voice sounded once more. No problem. If I'm able to break through, so what if I do 10 or even 30 tasks for you in the future? Old Monster Shu suppressed the excitement in his heart. Without even guessing, he knew that the 100 origin sacred honey definitely came from the divine illusion dimension. There was almost no chance of such a honey forming in the environment of the continent zone. It's fine as long as you keep this promise in your heart. Zhao Feng's voice faded away from Old Monster Shu's ears. When one reached Zhao Feng's or Old Monster Shu's level, any promise would have the same effect as a heart demon if it was broken. Furthermore, Old Monster Shu had made this promise when he was coming to the end of his life. In the air above the 10,000 sacred clan, Zhao Feng's figure rose higher and higher, and he said goodbye to those from the 10,000 sacred clan. From this moment onward, he officially resigned from the 10,000 sacred clan. Adding on the fact that he had taken over this body, The pursuit of the other forces wouldn't come after the 10,000 Sacred Clan. On the other side, Duke Nunfeng and Tai Lishan couldn't help but be slightly expectant. Where would Zhao Feng go after leaving the 10,000 Sacred Clan? Duke Nunfeng was full of smiles and was just about to speak. Su. A bright red blazing figure suddenly shot forward and arrived before Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng, please listen. Tai Lishan took a deep breath and spoke before Duke Nunfeng. Chapter 882, Zhao Feng's Direction. Zhao Feng, please listen, Tai Lishan quickly said, causing Duke Nunfeng to pause. Although the latter was slightly unhappy, he didn't display it. Duke Nunfeng knew this emperor from the Tai family. The Tai family was based in the northwestern region of the Great Gan Lord dynasty, and they were main force that defended against the Dark Moon Lord dynasty. The family was praised even by the sacred emperor. May I ask what you have to say? Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed as he inspected Tai Lishan. Before this, he was focused on breaking through to the Void God realm, so he didn't really pay much attention to Tai Lishan. Zhao Feng didn't expect him to be so patient that he was still waiting for him around the 10,000 Sacred Clan. Zhao Feng, or whoever you really are, the origin of the bloodline you have comes from the Tai family, and your mother also lives. This blood tie is unable to be severed, Tai Lishan said in an honest tone. Bloodline of the Tai family? Mother? Hearing that, Duke Nunfeng was filled with shock. Everything just became more complex. He originally thought that Zhao Feng had revived by taking over this body, which was true. However, the bloodline in this body wasn't simple. The Tai family was one of the most powerful even amongst the 8 big families, and even the Great Gan Imperials needed to give them some face. The bloodline and battle power of those from the Tai family were both amongst the top in the 8 big families, and according to what Duke Nunfeng knew, the Tai family was extremely strict with their bloodline. Under normal situations, if there was someone else with their bloodline, they would be punished. Emperor Zhao, just think of this as Fenger's wish when he was alive. He always thought that his parents had died, Grandfather Zhao Boden said in a trembling tone. Zhao Feng glanced at Tai Lishan, you want me to join the Tai family? That's right. Tai Lishan was extremely excited. That was precisely what he wanted. Zhao Feng, you've offended 9 Darkness Palace and a bunch of other superpowers. Normal forces won't be able to protect you, but if you join the Tai family, not many forces will dare to touch you. Tai Lishan's voice was confident. The Tai family was known in the Great Gan Lord dynasty for being extremely forceful, and they were comparable to a peak 3-star power. They weren't scared of even fighting a 4-star power. If Zhao Feng joined the Tai family, he would indeed be protected. Thank you for your goodwill, but I already know where I'm heading, so I can't join the Tai family. Zhao Feng faintly shook his head without hesitation. Back at the true martial sacred land, Zhao Feng told his master Duan Muqing and Zhao Yufei that he would go to the Duanmu family after confirming whether his fiancée Lu Qinshan was dead or alive. Duan Muqing, the Purple Saint partial spirit, and Zhao Yufei all wanted to revive the Duanmu family, and Zhao Feng planned to help them. After all, the Purple Saint partial spirit and Duan Muqing had helped Zhao Feng a lot in the past. Tai Lishan was extremely disappointed and sad, but he couldn't do anything to Zhao Feng or Duke Nunfeng. Tai Lishan and Duke Nunfeng were both surprised. Zhao Feng actually knew where he was heading already? Duke Nunfeng thought to himself that he would definitely find out everything about the left-eyed Heavenly Emperor's identity. Although the Kang Ocean was a bit far from the Lord dynasty, there were definitely some information agencies that would know about the left-eyed Heavenly Emperor. I'm sorry. Zhao Feng paused for a moment with sympathy. I'm not the original Zhao Feng, so all ties from the past will be cut here. The whole reason he did the In My Name speech was to wipe away everything from the original Zhao Feng. Cut ties? Watching Zhao Feng and Duke Nunfeng leave, Tai Lishan shook his head and smiled as he murmured, Zhao Feng, your thinking is far too simple. The families of the continent zone are extremely strict with their bloodlines. You really think the Tai family will let their strongest bloodline just go around unchecked? Indeed, Zhao Feng had thought about this situation far too simply. Every family in the Lord dynasty, including the 8 big families and the Imperials, placed great importance on their bloodlines. Whoosh! Zhao Feng and Duke Nunfeng flew side by side as they left the 10,000 Sacred Clan. Before they left, Zhao Feng silently waved his armed guard and left a spatial mark near the 10,000 Sacred Clan. Since he had the Misty Spatial World, Zhao Feng could instantly arrive here again in the future if he was strong enough. Zhao Feng, Can you please help me look after the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly? Duke Ninfeng was full of smiles. Earlier, Zhao Feng had received a message from Duke Ninfeng and agreed to go to his palace. Half a month earlier, the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly had finally recovered under the massive use of resources. Duke Ninfeng was already feeling impatient and was going to use part of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly's origin pollen to help him break through to the mystic light realm. The origin pollen of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was similar to the 100 origin sacred honey in that it was extremely effective in allowing one's soul and body to become one. This pollen was also extremely difficult to obtain. Each cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly could only do it once or twice in their life. It's nothing. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. At this moment, he finally understood why Duke Ninfeng placed so much importance on the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly. The cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was one of the 10,000 ancient races, and it had unique supportive abilities. The cloud saint silk that shot out of its mouth was one of the best materials to craft armor. The cloud silk robes that Nan Gongsheng had obtained in the divine illusion dimension was made from this material. Zhao Feng, I need to tell you some things, Duke Ninfeng said on the way back. Duke, please speak. Zhao Feng was surprised. You've killed a lot of kings and emperors of Earth Spirit Hall. Being a 3-star power, they have mystic light realm sacred lords, and they won't easily let you go, Duke Ninfeng warned in a solemn tone. 3-star powers were extremely strong even in the Lord Dynasty, and they could affect the destiny of a big area. After all, there were far too few 4-star forces. They didn't even number more than the number of fingers on a hand. I understand. Zhao Feng's heart faintly shook, but he was prepared for this. Zhao Feng knew how strong a 3-star power was because he had stayed in the true mystic sacred clan before. However, no matter how strong he was, Zhao Feng was only at the void god realm. Mystic light realm sacred lords were usually in seclusion, and they generally weren't very interested in what happened in the world. However, whenever a mystic light realm sacred lord did interfere in something, they did so in a powerful manner. For 3-star forces, mystic light realm sacred lords would only deal with the problems that peak emperors couldn't. Back in the day, the Wind Lightning Emperor and the Pirate Emperor both died due to the pursuit of mystic light realm sacred lords. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. The Wind Lightning Emperor was a peak emperor, and he was famous for being the fastest emperor. The Pirate Emperor was known for being a mechanisms master who had found a Heaven's Legacy city, and he was extremely rich. These two emperors were both legends of an era, but they were still killed by mystic light realm sacred lords. From this, one could see that mystic light realm sacred lords were unrivaled in the world. Even demigods were only in the mystic light realm. They were just closer to the realm of gods than normal sacred lords. But you can relax as long as you stay at my palace because even normal 3-star forces won't dare to trouble you there, Duke Ninfeng said with a smile. He had a noble status, and he was related to the Imperials of the Great Gon Lord dynasty. Furthermore, Duke Ninfeng himself was extremely strong, and he had taken half a step into the mystic light realm. This time, Duke Ninfeng was going to use the origin pollen of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly to attempt to break through to the mystic light realm, and he needed Zhao Feng to look after the weak cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly. Then I'll stay at the Duke's palace for a while, Zhao Feng decided. Going to the Duanmu family immediately wasn't the best choice. Zhao Feng had heard about what was happening with the Duanmu family. It was one of the families that was going downhill, and if they fell one step further, the Duanmu family might be excluded from being one of the 8 big families. Zhao Feng was scared that joining the Duanmu family right now would only bring danger to them. An hour later, Zhao Feng and Duke Ninfeng reached the Duke's palace. Greetings, Duke. Greetings sounded as the two walked together. Zhao Feng was accustomed to this. Duke Ninfeng soon led Zhao Feng to a hidden secret hall and took out a transparent bottle. The cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was like a piece of jade that lay quietly in the bottle. Its aura was extremely weak, and it occasionally fluttered its half-transparent wings as it slept. Zhao Feng inspected it and saw that the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was extremely weak, just below that of last time. Meow meow. Zhao Feng waved his arm guard, and a tiny silver gray cat appeared next to the bottle. Meow. Ding. Ding. The little thieving cat waved its paws toward the bottle. Who tilde paw? The chubby cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly shook slightly as it opened its green eyes. The terrifying aura of the ancient air appeared, and it made the bloodlines of countless beings within 100 miles shake. Even Zhao Feng felt pressured. Once the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly recovered to its peak, its battle power would be extremely close to the mystic light realm. It could be said that this cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was Duke Ninfeng's left and right arm all by itself. No wonder Duke Ninfeng wanted it to recover so quickly. Once Duke Ninfeng became a sacred lord and had the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly to support him, his strength would increase by several times. He would have a lot of power in the Great Gon Lord dynasty. If my lord is okay with it, you can leave the Saint Butterfly to me for now, Zhao Feng said. Okay. Duke Ninfeng gave Zhao Feng a deep glance. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't dare to give the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly to someone else, but this youth was an exception. He seemed to have some sort of charm that made others believe in him. Thank you for believing in me. Zhao Feng faintly smiled as he put the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly and the little thieving cat into the misty spatial world. Zhao Feng gave the task of healing and looking after the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly to the little thieving cat. Later that day, in an underground palace where Duke Ninfeng was in seclusion. Reporting to my lord, we've found news regarding the left-eyed heavenly emperor of the Kangoshan. A king covered in black half knelt on the ground. His eyes were full of shock, and his tone was unusual. Chapter 883, Fame of the Left-Eyed Heavenly Emperor. Far away, in the central regions of the continent, the Great Gon Imperials were surrounded in magnificent buildings in the providence of the Lord dynasty. In a side hall within a palace. Seeing. Shua. A bulky youth with thick eyebrows rushed into the side hall with urgency. Luozun, what other news is there? The 8th prince was sitting down, and the undulation of true yuan coming from him had reached the level of a peak-tier king. It had been 2 months since the end of the divine illusion dimension. In Xieyang Palace, the combination of the 3 princes had managed to obtain many treasures. They were also one of the biggest winners. 8th prince, the Imperial Skynet has received news that the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon has indeed entered the continent zone, but the demigods from the Grand Imperial Hall and Sky Suspension Palace are teaming up to try to seal it, Luozun said. This news would cause chaos if the outside world knew of it. If the sky falls, the tall ones will hold it up. We don't need to worry about the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. How's the purple-haired demonic duo doing? The 8th prince had a calm expression. The Black Serpent Dragon and demigods were too far away for him right now. He would be uneasy around and scared of the Black Serpent Dragon in Xieyang Palace, but there were experts in the continent zone that would take care of the Black Serpent Dragon. On the other hand, the purple-haired demonic duo was the biggest winner in Xieyang Palace, and they were a lot closer to his level. We've found out some news regarding the purple-haired demonic duo. Luozun took a deep breath. He wasn't just the 8th prince's right-hand man, they were also great friends. Oh? The 8th prince revealed a look of interest. The purple-haired demonic duo was extremely strong, and Zhao Feng in particular was extremely mysterious. Even the 8th prince couldn't see through him. Firstly, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng both come from a 3-star power from the true martial sacred land of the Kangoshan, the mystic true sacred clan. Luozun paused for a moment. Kangoshan. True martial sacred land? The 8th prince's eyebrows furrowed. The Great Gon Imperials had less control over those kinds of territories than the past. Right now, the Great Gon Imperials' biggest concern was the Dark Moon Lord dynasty in the northwestern region. They still weren't able to deal with them. In addition, any 3-star power in the world wasn't to be easily offended. Nan Gongsheng is the mystic true sacred clan's head disciple, and Zhao Feng is the disciple of Duanmu Qing from the Duanmu family, Luozun continued. That's nothing to be surprised about. It's understandable that those two are disciples of emperors, the 8th prince said. No. Luozun quickly shook his head. The important thing is that Zhao Feng is someone known as the left-eyed heavenly emperor. He's famous all across the Kangoshan, but his fame hasn't spread to the continent zone. However, he had an archenemy that I believe 8th prince knows of, the Emperor of Death. The Emperor of Death? The 8th prince's expression changed as he thought of something, as if remembering some miracles performed by the Emperor of Death. The Emperor of Death who has the Eye of Death? He once attacked the continent zone several thousand years ago and created a storm of blood. Many emperors, including peak emperors, were defeated by him. The 8th prince's expression started to become solemn. Under normal situations, mystic light realm sacred lords didn't usually come out. One could imagine how fierce the Emperor of Death was back then. Such an existence is the archenemy of this left-eyed heavenly emperor, Zhao Feng. The eighth prince could never have imagined that this youth had hidden himself so deeply. The Emperor of Death was killed by the left-eyed heavenly emperor, Luo Xun added. S2. The eighth prince took in a cold breath. Didn't that mean that the left-eyed heavenly emperor at his peak was unrivaled below the mystic light realm and even had the possibility of threatening sacred lords? So, our opponent was that strong? Looks like the power we have right now isn't enough to threaten the purple-haired demonic duo. The eighth prince sighed after a while. Peak emperors stood at the top in the Lord dynasty. Mystic light realm sacred lords weren't allowed to take action very easily as it would disrupt the balance. Back in the Tianfang Great Island Zone, in the underground palace of the Duke's Palace, the Emperor of Death's era was ended by the left-eyed heavenly emperor. Zhao Feng, it looks like your history isn't simple. Duke Ninfeng let out a long breath as shock filled his face. Duke Ninfeng knew a bit about the Emperor of Death. He hadn't been born in that era, but he had heard some of the elders talk about him. Duke Ninfeng started to think and suddenly remembered something. That's right, wasn't there another powerful eye bloodline that appeared alongside the Emperor of Death several thousand years ago? Duke Ninfeng asked. Replying to my lord, the king in black said respectfully, the other is the Eye of Samsara. That's right, it's the Eye of Samsara. Back when the Emperor of Death attacked the continent zone, it raised the interest of the Eye of Samsara's owner, but at the end, the Emperor of Death retreated back to the Kang Ocean. Duke Ninfeng remembered part of the legend. It could be said that it was a clash between the Eye of Samsara and the Eye of Death. No one knew what ultimately happened, but ever since then, the Emperor of Death had retreated back to the Kang Ocean and never appeared in the continent zone again. It was still a mystery whether the Eye of Samsara's owner was still in the continent zone or not. Left-eyed heavenly emperor? Duke Ninfeng couldn't help but murmur. Zhao Feng's eye bloodline is also extremely strong and mysterious. If he's able to defeat the Emperor of Death and the Eye of Death, could he also be a descendant of one of the God Eyes? The 8 great God Eyes were the peak of eye bloodlines, and they were known as the Great Ancestor Eyes. Any descendant of the 8 great God Eyes would have an extremely powerful eye bloodline. Duke Ninfeng couldn't help but look forward to the future. Would Zhao Feng's existence raise the interest of the Eye of Samsara's owner and make the latter appear once more? The next day, within an elegant room in the Duke's Palace. Big brother Zhao, you didn't come find me to play even though you're here in the Duke's Palace. A pretty girl pouted and pulled Zhao Feng's sleeve. Zhao Feng sat down and couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile as he looked at Princess Yuqing in front of him. Princess Yuqing admired and slightly had feelings for this mysterious beast tamer. Big brother Zhao, what happened in the Divine Illusion dimension? My father didn't even let me go in and play. Oh yeah, I heard that my father let you take care of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly. It's rare to see father trust someone so much. Princess Yuqing chattered continuously. A voice appeared out of nowhere at this moment. Yuqing, don't be rude. Duke Ninfeng appeared alongside a surge of powerful force and providence. Princess Yuqing jumped up in fright. Her father loved her a lot and rarely talked to her in such a tone. Zhao Feng, Yuqing's just a little kid. I hope she hasn't disturbed you. Duke Ninfeng smiled faintly, but he was sweating in his mind. Thinking about how the powerful Emperor of Death was killed by Zhao Feng, he was a lot more respectful and warier of this youth. Yuqing's just lively, there's no need to blame her. Zhao Feng gave a faint smile. He could feel that Duke Ninfeng was treating him a bit differently from before. Zhao Feng, I'll be entering a life and death seclusion to try to break through to the mystic light realm. I hope you can take care of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly during the next couple of months and help the palace if there's any danger, Duke Ninfeng said in a solemn tone. In reality, Duke Ninfeng had also invited several other emperors since he knew he was going to be in seclusion. There was even a peak emperor in the group, and all of them were trustworthy, but Duke Ninfeng hoped to invite Zhao Feng as well since he suddenly remembered his identity of the left-eyed heavenly emperor. Since I'm staying in the palace, I will obviously have some responsibilities. Zhao Feng nodded his head. Normal forces wouldn't dare to attack him if he stayed in the Duke's Palace. To a certain degree, it could be said that he had the protection of the Duke's Palace, so there was nothing wrong with helping out in return. Duke Ninfeng then introduced Zhao Feng to some of the other emperors within the palace, but since these emperors didn't know about Zhao Feng's history, they didn't really take it to heart. Yuqing, I know that you like Zhao Feng, but the two of you can't be together, Duke Ninfeng said in a strict tone. Princess Yuqing cried and went to tell her mother, but she got the same reply. It was usual for her to catch feelings and admire others at this age. Several days later, Duke Ninfeng had made all his preparations and was about to enter life and death seclusion. Zhao Feng noticed that the Duke's palace had stopped interacting with the outside world, and they were extremely serious. Apparently, Princess Yuqing had been confined, and Zhao Feng could peacefully do what he wanted. Shoo! Zhao Feng's consciousness entered the misty spatial world. The little thieving cat had organized everything nicely in the misty spatial world, and most of the treasures from the divine illusion dimension were planted here. Zhao Feng first went to check on the 5 poison distinct bees. In the past 2 months, these 5 poison distinct bees were becoming a lot stronger due to the large numbers of flowers. Of the 5 poison distinct bees that Zhao Feng had enslaved, 3 of them were bee kings, and 100 were elite bees. The remaining several hundred were all at least at the late stages of the Great Origin Core Realm. Now, one of the bee kings had become a bee emperor. The remaining elite bees were all at least comparable to half-step kings, and a bit more than a dozen had become bee kings. One had to know that the 5 poison distinct bees also had the ability to kill those stronger than themselves with a special suicidal attack. The suicidal attack of a bee king could very likely take down an emperor. As for the normal bees, half of them had become elite venomous bees. Very good. All of the bees will become elites within half a year, and there will also be more bee kings and emperors. Zhao Feng was very satisfied. It was because he had a large amount of resources that he was able to raise the strength of the venomous bees within a short amount of time. If he was willing, Zhao Feng could even create an entire force that belonged to himself. It all depended on whether or not he was willing to invest the time and resources. After returning from the divine illusion dimension, Zhao Feng could improve far too many possible aspects. Chapter 884, Recovering Strength. Within the misty spatial world, Zhao Feng went to see the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly after making sure that the 5 poison distinct bees were doing okay. The cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was usually the size of a thumb when not in combat mode. It was even smaller than the little thieving cat, similar to the 5 poison distinct bees. However, Zhao Feng didn't dare to underestimate it. When it recovered to its peak strength, the battle power and supportive abilities of the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly were enough to even trouble Mystic Light Realm sacred lords. At this moment, the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly had only just entered the misty spatial world and was very weak, but it was on good terms with the little thieving cat. The little thieving cat seemed to have a unique ability that allowed it to get close to and communicate with most species, including those with a 10,000 ancient races bloodline. The cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly was no different. It would occasionally open its green eyes and communicate with the little thieving cat. Zhao Feng had his own plans on how to recover the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly. The fluids from the ancient dream realm seemed to have a very good effect on those with 10,000 ancient races bloodlines. Apart from that, Zhao Feng was going to use some other powerful life-related materials such as the pollen collected by the 5 poison distinct bees or the honey they made, as well as some 100 origin fruit juice. Zhao Feng didn't want to give it any 100 origin sacred honey, even he hadn't used it yet. If I gave the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly a serving of the 100 origin sacred honey, it might be able to reach the mystic light realm right away. At that time, Duke Ninfeng would be almost able to completely look down on the entire Lord dynasty. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled, but he didn't do that because, firstly, that easily exceeded the value of what Duke Ninfeng was giving him, and secondly, he had only met Duke Ninfeng recently and hadn't reached the stage where he completely trusted him yet. The situation of the Great Gan Lord dynasty was extremely complex. It was hard to say whether Zhao Feng and Duke Ninfeng were going to be enemies or friends in the future, so Zhao Feng just wanted to uphold his promise and make the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly recover its strength a little quicker. As long as Duke Ninfeng was able to break through to the mystic light realm and have a recovered cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly, he would definitely have a spot in the Great Gan Lord dynasty. An hour later, in an elegant room of the Duke's palace, Zhao Feng took back his consciousness and started to cultivate quietly. Because his sacred lightning body and wind lightning technique had broken through not long ago, Zhao Feng needed to consolidate them a bit. Furthermore, the Golden Kun sacred lightning body and 5 elemental wind lightning technique contained some decent battle techniques that Zhao Feng hadn't learned yet. Increasing cultivation and physical force was just the foundation. In order to unleash one's true potential, secret battle techniques were not to be lacking either. After reaching the 5th level of the Golden Kun Sacred Lightning Body, Zhao Feng could learn the Sacred Lightning Force Punch, Undying Sacred Lightning Body, Sacred Lightning Protection, and various other abilities. Sacred Lightning Force Punch was an offensive skill that could be cultivated when one reached the 4th level of the Sacred Lightning Body. However, Zhao Feng didn't have enough time in the Divine Illusion dimension, so he didn't have time to learn it. Undying Sacred Lightning Body was when the Sacred Lightning Body was trained to a certain level and gained an undying quality. It required years of cultivation and took a long time to cultivate. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon had a similar undying quality, so it could ignore normal attacks. Those with strong undying bodies would usually be sealed since it was too hard to kill them outright. According to what Zhao Feng knew, when he reached the 6th level of the Sacred Lightning Body, he could start to learn how to revive from blood. Unfortunately, Zhao Feng didn't actually have the technique to learn from like the demigod Kun Yuan did. Sacred Lightning Protection was a protective skill formed by combining the Wind Lightning technique and the Sacred Lightning Body. Its defense was extremely strong, and it was extremely resilient against all types of Yuan Qi. Zhao Feng estimated that, if he managed to cultivate the Sacred Lightning Protection, he would be able to ignore all attacks from anyone below the Mystic Light Realm, and even Mystic Light Realm Sacred Lords would be unable to kill him within a short amount of time. I'll cultivate the Sacred Lightning Force Punch and Sacred Lightning Protection first to increase my offense and defense. The Undying Sacred Lightning Body can't be cultivated right away anyway, Zhao Feng decided. Of course, apart from those 3 skills, there were many more, and Zhao Feng decided to focus on the battle techniques that were related to the Sacred Lightning Body. As for the Wind Lightning technique, Zhao Feng had cultivated the Wind Lightning inheritance to a very high level in his previous life, so he didn't need to spend too much time on Wind Lightning battle skills. In the blink of an eye, the majority of a month passed, and Zhao Feng finally managed to cultivate the Sacred Lightning Force Punch and the Sacred Lightning Protection technique. Sacred Lightning Protection was relatively easier since it utilized the power of Wind Lightning to form a strong barrier of lightning. Wang tilde. An ancient barrier of lightning suddenly expanded around Zhao Feng with a flash and hum of lightning. This barrier wasn't formed from normal true yuan, it fused with the dominating force of the Sacred Lightning Body, and it could even reflect attacks. Normal Void God realms would be severely injured if they attacked Zhao Feng's Sacred Lightning Protection and cough out blood. The defense is extremely strong, but it can't be easily used. Zhao Feng was covered by a layer of lightning that seemed like a materialized layer of armor that protected every angle. Zhao Feng then started to practice the Sacred Lightning Force Punch. In reality, Zhao Feng had already seen the child demigod use his version of this technique before, and the latter had used it with extremely profound intent. Although Zhao Feng's intent was pretty profound, there was still a difference between him and a demigod. Therefore, he kept on practicing this technique as he circulated the 10,000 divine thoughts technique in his mind. Luckily, Zhao Feng's God's spiritual eye specialized in analyzing and learning. Zhao Feng calmly cultivated in the Duke's palace, and his 10,000 divine thoughts technique allowed him to multitask. Zhao Feng spent another month on battle techniques. He then focused on his cultivation level and his soul. A dark head floated near the edge of his purple soul sea in the dimension of his left eye. It occasionally glittered with wisps of God Tribulation lightning. This God Tribulation head was acquired during his previous life, and now that Zhao Feng's Emperor intent had mostly recovered, he could start to absorb the Tribulation lightning within it again. Unknowingly, the aura of the Tribulation lightning within the head was starting to decrease. I've already absorbed quite a bit of the Tribulation lightning contained within the head. There's only 50 to 60% left, and it won't last very long, Zhao Feng thought. The God Tribulation head wouldn't be enough if he wanted to completely comprehend the intent of and control the power of the God Tribulation lightning. He would have to focus on comprehension while also trying to find other things that contain God Tribulation lightning. The wisps of the God Tribulation lightning were absorbed by his soul sea. Zhao Feng used part of his 10,000 divine thoughts technique to absorb the God Tribulation lightning and condense his soul. At this moment, Zhao Feng's soul hadn't completely reached the level of an emperor, so it was behind the level of his emperor intent. On the other hand, his emperor intent quickly recovered to the peak of his previous life with the refinement of the God Tribulation lightning. The rate at which I absorb the God Tribulation lightning surpasses that of my previous life. As long as my soul strength recovers as well, my overall strength will surpass that of my previous life. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled with expectancy, but unfortunately, he didn't have many soul Dao treasures. The majority of the soul-suppressing stone had already been refined, and when Zhao Feng's emperor intent completely recovered, the soul power within the soul-suppressing stone was quickly used up. Of course, the soul-suppressing stone itself was still a treasure that could suppress powerful ghosts. Half a month later, almost all of the soul Dao treasures that Zhao Feng had in the misty spatial world were used up. Most of them weren't strong enough, and Zhao Feng's soul strength managed to barely recover to the level of an emperor. The purple soul sea in the dimension of his left eye was 800 or 900 yards long. Although it wasn't 1,000 yards long like when it was at its peak, the difference this time was that it was more condensed and had absorbed more God tribulation lightning. Hu tilde. Zhao Feng let out a long breath as he murmured, "I've recovered almost all my strength from my previous life." At this moment in time, although he wasn't at the middle stages of the void god realm like his previous life and his soul was a bit weaker as well, his overall strength had reached the same level. After all, Zhao Feng had cultivated the sacred lightning body and had a strong physical body now. Although the defense of his Blood Devil Sun bloodline wasn't as good as the Mystic Ice-Scaled Race bloodline, its offense and explosiveness were much stronger. Overall, he had recovered the same level of strength as the left-eyed Heavenly Emperor at his peak. As long as he didn't offend some forbidden existences, he could go wherever he wished in the Lord Dynasty. Within a secret cultivation room in an elegant part of the Duke's palace, Zhao Feng spent most of his time on the wind lightning technique as well as used it to refine his sacred lightning body. Crack. At a certain moment, the wind lightning crystal core in Zhao Feng's hand turned into ashes. The king-level crystal core he had obtained in the divine illusion dimension had finally come to an end. Although the essence of wind lightning in this crystal core was thicker than the crystal core of a domain-level king, it had to be refined, so only a portion of it was absorbed in the end. Zhao Feng's expression was the same as usual as he kept on cultivating. The seventh level of the wind lightning technique was the wood of wind lightning. He had a large amount of wood elemental treasures as well as some Dao of lightning treasures. Adding on the fact that he had recovered his emperor intent, Zhao Feng's cultivation speed was extremely fast. On the night of a certain day. Whoosh! 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 Several stealthy figures appeared outside the Duke's palace. I didn't expect Zhao Feng to be someone who took over another body or that he would have the battle power of a peak emperor. He's staying in the Duke's palace right now. Although we will most likely win, we can't just attack him on the surface, so we have to think of a plan. 4 males and 1 female could be seen in the night. All of their auras seemed to have merged with the moonlight. No one would be able to sense them unless they got extremely close. The kings and emperors guarding the Duke's palace only occasionally scanned over the area, but they didn't find anything. Chapter 885, Breaking Through to the Mystic Light Realm. The 4 males and 1 female were covered by a faint layer of moonlight, and they seemed to merge into the night. The source of the moonlight came from the female in dark green robes. This dark green-robed female gave off a calm aura, and she had an elegant disposition that stood out from the other 4, who had demonic auras. However, the leader of the 5 was a tall male with a purple-black aura. This male's eyes were dark, and although he tried to conceal himself, the occasional wisp of black flame appeared. 9 Darkness Palace sent 4 peak emperors to kill Zhao Feng. This demonic emperor Xuanluo is unrivaled even amongst emperors, and he has fought with a sacred lord before. The expression of the female in dark green robes was solemn. She was extremely wary of the purple and black armored demonic emperor Xuanluo. On top of that, the other 3 were peak emperors as well. Bai Kuang Yue. Black flames occasionally appeared from demonic emperor Xuanluo as his gaze landed on the female in dark green robes. Lord Protector, is there anything you need? The dark green-robed female slightly bowed with respect. As the owner of the Ocean Smoke Pavilion that's in charge of the information around the ocean and the Dianfeng Great Island Zone, you should know more about the Duke's palace than us. Demonic Emperor Xuanluo's voice seemed to come from an abyss. The dark-robed female paused for a moment before answering. Right now, Duke Nanfeng has entered a life and death seclusion to try to break through to the mystic light realm. There are 3 emperors in the palace, including a peak emperor, and all of them are trusted by Duke Nanfeng. The target we are aiming to kill is faster than most peak emperors. Not bad, not bad. The other 3 peak emperors were an elder with a purple face, a middle-aged male with a dark face, and a youth in black armor. They were very satisfied with this information. 9 Darkness Palace, which they were from, was extremely far away from this place, so they didn't know much. Luckily, since they were a peak 3-star power as well as the leading force of the demonic Tao, they had some subordinate forces in the area. One of them was the Ocean Smoke Pavilion, which the dark green-robed Bai Kuang Yue was from. What do you think our chances of winning are? Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo seemed to be thinking about Bai Kuang Yue's loyalty. Greed and playfulness flashed through his eyes as he eyed her. Bai Kuang Yue started to feel cold under his gaze. She was also a peak emperor, but she felt a huge pressure from demonic Emperor Xuan Luo. This pressure was almost at the mystic light realm level. The only one we need to be wary of is Duke Ninfeng. Since he's in seclusion right now, this is the best chance to take action. We only need to surround or ambush Zhao Feng and not let him run away. The chance of success is 90%. After all, the left-eyed heavenly emperor has only just recovered back to the void god realm, so he hasn't fully recovered his strength, Bai Kuang Yue analyzed. Her analysis was based off the information about the Duke's palace, and it was correct in theory. That's about correct. Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo took back his gaze and spoke in an emotionless tone, but this isn't the best moment to take action yet. What we are wary of isn't Duke Ninfeng, but the Great God Imperials, or more precisely, the Grand Imperial Hall. Hearing that, Bai Kuang Yue was slightly shocked. Right now wasn't the best chance to take action? Did he want to wait until Duke Ninfeng reached the mystic light realm? She knew of the Grand Imperial Hall. It was a supreme force behind the Imperials, and it was comparable to a 4-star power. Apparently, the members of the Grand Imperial Hall mainly came from the Imperials, and it mainly consisted of the previous emperors. Although the Grand Imperial Hall didn't have many members, most of their core members were Mystic Light Realm Sacred Lords. I've tried to break through to the Mystic Light Realm before, and I can tell that Duke Ninfeng hasn't reached the final stage of breaking through. Although he's entered a life and death seclusion, he could come out at any time if he is interrupted. Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo's voice made Bai Kuang Yue's heart go cold. She had forgotten that demonic Emperor Xuan Luo was an unparalleled emperor who had tried to break through to the mystic light realm many times. Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo was probably more experienced and familiar than Duke Ninfeng in how to reach the mystic light realm. The best chance is when Duke Ninfeng is at the last stage of breaking through. At that moment, even if he finds out we're going to take action against Zhao Feng, he won't do anything or else he'll be severely injured from the disruption. It could be said that he would have to make one hard decision. Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo snickered coldly. Hearing that, the other peak emperors started to laugh wickedly. So that's how it is. Bai Kuang Yue nodded her head. If they took action right now, Duke Ninfeng would probably just come out and stop them. After all, Nine Darkness Palace didn't dare to attack an important member of the Great God Imperials directly yet. Furthermore, Duke Ninfeng was extremely strong in his own right, and he had the providence of the Lord Dynasty. On top of that, he also had the Cloud Silkworm Saint Butterfly. We just need to wait for another half a month. Demonic Emperor Xuan Luo slightly raised his hand, and the group of 5 pulled away from the Duke's palace. Within the Duke's palace, none of the emperors that were here to guard it sensed anything, and as Duke Ninfeng was in seclusion, his senses toward the outside world also dropped dramatically. In a secret cultivation room within the Duke's palace, Zhao Feng poured all his energy into cultivation and also knew nothing of the danger that was starting to brew. Shoo! Shoo! With a wave of his hands, a bunch of wood elemental resources appeared in front of him. He had many wood elemental resources, but not so many wind lightning resources. However, because Zhao Feng had his emperor intent, his cultivation of the wind lightning laws wasn't slow. Over the past couple days, Zhao Feng had been progressing steadily in the wind lightning technique. Because he had a large amount of wood elemental resources, such as the 100 origin fruit juice and the green water sky lotuses, Zhao Feng's progress in the wood of wind lightning was basically at the level of a god. Furthermore, the water of wind lightning within Zhao Feng's body could also turn into wood of wind lightning. Unknowingly, Zhao Feng's wind lightning technique had reached the late stages of the 7th level and was still progressing. The further one goes in the 5 elemental wind lightning technique, the more methods and skills one can use. When the elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth of wind lightning are all cultivated, barely anyone in the Lord Dynasty will be my match. Zhao Feng couldn't help but look forward to that day. Because of his foundation in the wind lightning inheritance from his previous life, his progress in the wind lightning technique was very rapid and didn't have any bottleneck at all. Of course, it also helped that he had enough resources. Time passed by slowly, and Zhao Feng used the 10,000 divine thoughts technique to split his energy into 3 sources to comprehend 3 things. The first was to focus on absorbing the God Tribulation lightning and use it to refine his soul. The second was to learn and practice the battle techniques within the wind lightning technique and the sacred lightning body in his mind. The third was to cultivate the 5 elemental wind lightning technique to raise his cultivation. In reality, Zhao Feng had far too many options to choose from right now. By controlling Junior Marshal Brother Deng Zhao from Sky Suspension Palace, he was able to obtain a large amount of Xie Yang books, and some of them were comparable to the Golden Kun Sacred Lightning Body or the 5 Elemental Wind Lightning Technique. A small number of them even surpassed those 2 techniques. These Xie Yang books mainly regarded the Wicked Tao, and although they weren't suitable for Zhao Feng, they could still increase his knowledge and understanding of the world. If Zhao Feng was able to comprehend these Xie Yang books, he could perfect the skills he had or even create his own skills, but right now, he needed to gain his footing in the Great Gon Lord dynasty and could only work on those things when he had time later. In the blink of an eye, another month passed, and Zhao Feng's soul was now completely consolidated at the level of an emperor and not much different from his previous life. In addition, Zhao Feng's progress in the wind lightning technique was extremely fast, and he had almost reached the peak level for his wood of wind lightning. His cultivation was also just a tiny bit away from reaching the peak of his previous life. He had almost reached the middle stages of the Void God realm. However, after reaching the late stages of the Sacred Lightning Body's 5th level, his progress started to become extremely slow. It would probably be stuck for a while unless Zhao Feng was willing to use the 100 Origin Sacred Honey. 3 months have passed. Duke Ninfeng should be at the last stages of trying to break through to the Mystic Light realm. On this day, Zhao Feng opened his eyes. Duke Ninfeng had told him some stuff before he entered seclusion. While Zhao Feng was a guest here, he was also one of the strongest people in the palace, so he needed to fulfill his responsibilities. As long as Duke Ninfeng was able to break through to the Mystic Light realm, the positives would outweigh the negatives for Zhao Feng since he was currently under the protection of the Duke's palace. Zhao Feng let out a long breath and exited his state of cultivation to inspect what was going on in the Duke's palace. At this moment, a powerful aura started to form in the air above the Duke's palace and caused heaven and earth to become heavy. The pressure from this aura first affected the soul before starting to pressure the physical dimension. At the end, this aura bore down on both dimensions, and it seemed to look down on everything in the world. Zhao Feng found that all the yuan qi nearby was starting to freeze, as if it was bowing down to a saint. Even the progress of his wind lightning technique was slowing down. Zhao Feng had only felt something similar from the Bee Empress in Xie Yang Palace. At a certain moment, boom. The air above Duke Ninfeng started to shake, and a purple golden haze appeared and slowly turned into a whirlpool. The true yuan of countless experts within the Duke's palace started to boil and become uneasy. At this instant, all the servants below the half-step king level had been taken away, otherwise the pressure from this aura alone would be enough to kill anyone at the Origin Core realm. A couple dozen miles away from the Duke's palace, in a hidden forest. The disturbance of mystic light sacred power. Duke Ninfeng's progress is going much more smoothly than I thought it would. Demonic Emperor Xuanluo was slightly dazed as a surge of forbidden aura started to appear around the Duke's palace. At this moment in time, all the beings within several thousand miles of the Duke's palace started to feel the pressure. The pressure included the power of mental energy and illusions. Hu. The golden-purple whirlpool in the air above the Duke's palace was like the light of a saint as it caused Yuan Qi to bow down and scared away gods and ghosts alike. Now is the best chance. If we're any later, there won't be any time. Demonic Emperor Xuanluo revealed an urgent expression as he led the 4 peak emperors and entered the Duke's palace.